Hi, and welcome to Living My Faith. That show where we spotlight those individuals that are really living for the kingdom. I'm your host, James Fenimore, and today we've got a really special guest for you. Joining me is Dr. Martha Nessler. Martha, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, I'm so good. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. We're so excited to have you. And we start this show with one simple question. How are you living your faith?
Well, about 4.5 years ago, I made a bold decision in the middle of the most chaotic time in my life to make God my CEO. So I've not only made God my CEO, but I'm partnering with women to fully submit their life and their business to the Lord and make God their CEO.
Well, I love that because when he's the center point, you can't fail. You know, when I got into coaching originally, I was doing a lot of business consulting, business coaching, and then when people started talking about their marriage, I started to say, okay, I can't really talk to you about your marriage if I'm not going to bring in Jesus Christ.
Right.
And then I said, wait a second. Why wasn't I talking about Jesus Christ when it was your P&L also, right? When it was your bottom line of your business or how you deal with your people. So compartmentalizing never worked. And I realized most coaching is self-reliance, self-determination, right? Putting yourself at the center. You and I know that's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, absolutely.
So having God as the CEO, I love that. How did you come up with that idea, just as a CEO?
Well, I would love to say that I came up with it myself, but the truth is, like I said, I was in the middle of a divorce, a miscarriage, business changes, financial changes. And for the first time in my life, I realized I couldn't, and I actually didn't want to. I think as a high capacity woman, and I can speak for other high capacity women, we're so used to solving problems on our own and taking the next course or hiring the next coach. And I got to this point where I said, Lord, I need you. And I was willing to lay it all down. And when I laid it down is when he said to me, I need you to make me your CEO. And I'll have to be honest that it hit me hard because I actually believe that. I have been saved my whole life. And as he began to show me pictures, I see very visually with the Lord and I hear him very clearly, just times in my life that I really had made him more of a board member. And I looked at my own life and I said, okay, I'm all in. And he took me through this process that I call the Arise process. And it was really the framework that he took me through that I now share with others to make him the CEO of my life. And it's one of the greatest honors I have to help other women do the same thing.
That's wonderful. And speaking of other women and helping them do the same thing, what does that process look like when a woman comes to you? You know, obviously, I'm sure she comes to you in all different shapes, right? Like some of them are probably really down and need something, and some of them might not be. And they just heard great news about your work and just want to better their life and their relationship with God. But what does the process for you look like when you start working with them to make God that CEO of their life?
Well, it's a very prayerful process. And I say that because one of the hardest things I've had to do as a coach, and I'm sure you can understand this, is not everyone's my client. So meeting with them and speaking with them and prayerfully considering whether or not the Lord is asking me to help this woman. And then I meet with them and I ask them to get real. And we actually start at the first trauma they can remember. And that sounds so strange to people. And I learned this in chiropractic and it has translated into all the coaching I've done over the years. What was the one thing that, broke you or was the traumatic event? Because what I find that high capacity women have done when they're so good at problem solving, they're so good at getting things done, what they do is they're like, I can fix this. And rather than fully healing from a trauma, they begin to build walls around their life to protect themselves and they build their success within those walls. But it's much like Jericho. At one time, those walls are coming down. And I know for me, my mom's death at 2, I just built walls. And a lot of the time, those walls are not true and they're lies. And the Lord really wants us to live in the fullness of what He has for us. And in order to do that, we've got to break down those walls so we can start to look at the life God intended us to live and not the one that we've been living out of our own self-sufficiency.
Yeah, and again, back to what I mentioned earlier, I hear walls, I hear compartmentalization, right? Now it's, I build walls, this is where I'm the business person, this is where I'm the mom or the dad, this is where, and all of a sudden you're a different person in each area when you're not, you're a child of God everywhere, and we're
Yes.
called to be that person. So without the walls, light can shine through everywhere. So I really appreciate that that's what you're doing with these women and helping them find that life with God, because man, it is the only way to find that true joy. So I really appreciate that. Is there anything specific you're working on now that, any methodologies, anything that you could tell our audience or the women in our audience, maybe a tip or a trick just to get them started?
It is one that is so simple, yet I really feel if you've been carrying it all. And what I mean by carrying it all is you're the woman who can get it all done and you're so used to doing it. This one almost feels like what's going to happen if I do it, and that's to surrender. When we live in a state of managing the schedules, controlling everything, looking for the next milestone, we're often compartmentalizing ourselves, and we're not even letting God in, yet we're begging him in our quiet time. I find a lot of times high capacity women, they look like they have it all together on the outside, but they're begging God in their quiet time, Lord, I need you. I need you to fix this. But when we surrender and get into the process of surrendering, that's when we can really step into God's sufficiency. And what that means is stepping out of busyness. I believe busyness is one of the devil's biggest tactics to separate us from fulfilling our calling and fully leading to our full capacity. So making sure you're prioritizing your time with the Lord and really, building intimacy. And in order to build intimacy, you have to start with surrender.
Oh, it's beautiful. We have my wife and I, Tricia, have a community called the Heart Posture Collective where we help people kind of just grow closer to God in their everyday lives. And busyness was something we talked about with them specifically because we said, hey, the devil can't just get you by turning you to sin. He's got to get you in other ways. And sometimes that busyness is good stuff. That's what I think so many people get confused by. They think the busyness is traffic or bad stuff. It's like, no, it's opportunities that you weren't called to do. God put something else on your path, and now you're called to do some ministry that he didn't want you doing. And you're helping the homeless, and that's wonderful. And you should do that if you're called to do that or if you have the time to. But if it's taking you away from something that he called you to do, that's the issue. And so busyness isn't necessarily a bad thing. It could be good things you're busy with. Do you find that with some of your patients or people that work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And the way I like to say it is busyness will keep you from the Father's business. And so we have to really look at busyness and what we're doing to keep ourselves busy. Because once again, when we look at, are we fully healed? And have we fully healed from the trauma, the drama, the past experiences? And busyness is a way that people avoid healing. The busier I am, the less I have to deal with my emotions or my spiritual life or even my physical well-being because I'm busy. And we wear busyness like a badge. And really truthfully, when we stop and we get still, that's when we hear the Lord, and in the busyness, it's hard to hear him. And he might be redirecting us, to not even get us on a different path, but protect us from something the enemy is trying to use to harm us.
Like we said about busyness as a badge, I feel like women do busyness as a badge the way men talk about how early they wake up in the morning. I was up at 4:30 in the morning. It's like, I know. I fell into that trap for about 10 years. I stopped telling people what time I wake up in the morning now. Dr. Martha, I can't thank you so much for joining us today. This is such an amazing chat. I know our audience is going to benefit it from tremendously. All your information is going to be right below this video. So if anybody wants to reach out to you for your services or just to say thank you for this wonderful interview, they'll have all your information right there. But again, from me and the audience, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It was such an honor to be here. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. On behalf of Dr. Martha Nessler, I'm James Fenimore. This has been Living My Faith, and we can't wait to see you next time.